What's going on, everybody? I'm your boy Retro Bliss, and you are on Retro Bliss Rewind. If I had to say that 3 times fast, I don't know what I'd be able to do. Anyway, we're gonna have some fun tonight. We're gonna talk about the Intellivision, and we have some great guests tonight. As always, we have Mike from Mike's Gaming Gala, and we have Brian from BD RetroMods. But I have a very special guest tonight. We have the Intellivision gamer Casey is here. What's going on, Casey?
Hey, Casey.
What's going on, guys?
Hey.
I asked Casey to be here because he's got his own podcast, and I didn't think he was going to be able to be here because he has his own podcast that's actually going to be showing at 9:30 tonight. Right after this show, there's a link in the description of this video. So as soon as this one's over, take a break, go grab your popcorn, put it in the microwave, and then come back and hit the link and watch his show. So we're going to be talking about the Intellivision. Before we get too far, I got to tell my story, because as soon as my story is told, I'm out. Because
maybe we can start with the round robin of kind of like our history with Intellivision.
The reason being is because many of you know that I didn't get back into retro gaming until about 3 years ago, and my experience with retro gaming had nothing to do with Intellivision at all. So when I started collecting, I just recently started getting Intellivision stuff. So I wanted to share with you some of the things that I did get and how I did get the few things that I do have. Now these guys, especially Mike and Casey, I'm not sure exactly what Brian has. I know Brian actually has quite a few things as well, and I'm going to let Brian talk about some of the things. I'm not going to steal all the thunder, because he has something he turned me on to as far as how to play ROMs and things on Intellivision. I'll let him talk about that. But these two guys in the corners opposite me and Brian have massive collections. And they really, really, really know a lot about the Intellivision. But I have
one much more massive than the other.
Yeah, I wonder, the guy underneath me, I think that whole wall behind him, I think that must all be Intellivision stuff. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you and explain to you what a couple pictures, and I'll explain the pictures. Okay, so the picture, this is my first pickup. Now, I got on Facebook Marketplace, and this was about $50 on Facebook Marketplace, and this was an Intellivision 2. And it came with, oddly enough, an Atari Game Center.
Which, yeah, it fits. If you got the Intellivision 2, it fits.
It was in there. It was in there, and it came with it came with 12 games, and it worked. It worked, so I thought, well, there's my experience with Intellivision 2. Now, when I started picking up a few games on eBay or whatnot. I did find out that certain carts did not work on the Intellivision 2, like Donkey Kong and some other.
Yeah, and you're not missing one with Donkey Kong.
I found that out later. I didn't know that until after the fact. But anyway, so I thought, well. So then, let me get rid of this. Let me get this off the stage here real quick, and then get the screen ready so you guys don't see me get what I'm trying to do done.
You don't see all this other web browsers.
Yeah, you don't
all the dark web stuff.
Yeah, that would be highly embarrassing. So, some of you who are members, not members, but viewers of the channel, may know, excuse me, I'm sucking on cough drops too, excuse me. I've been sick, and that's another thing. I'll be muting the mic, so as soon as this is over with, you won't hear the the clacking of the cough drops on my teeth once these guys start talking. Trust me, I'm going to mute the mic. But I went to Torg's. And Brian can attest to what I'm saying here, because he was there when this all happened. I went to a show. I went to this table, and I saw this guy. He had an Intellivision there, and he had a bunch of box games, and he had an IntelliVoice there and stuff. And I said, man, you got, man, that, and the Intellivision wasn't boxed or anything, but everything else was boxed. I said, man, that's nice. And it was cherry too. I said, that's awesome. And I wanted one. I wanted it. And he says, make me an offer. I said, man, I don't think I could get this. He says, make me an offer. I said, listen, I just got to the show. Let me walk around, see what I end up buying, and then I'll come back. I might come back. He said, okay. So I did my rounds, and I sat with Brian for a while, and I was telling him about it, and I pulled out my wallet, and I thought I had $143 left. That's all I had left in my wallet. And I told Brian, I said, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to offer that guy $143. I said, I'm going to see what happens. So I walk over there, and he had all of it still in his booth. So I took the cash out of my wallet and I laid it all out on the table so he could see every bit of my cash. And then I held my wallet out. I said, dude, this is all I got. And one of the games was Masters of the Universe complete in box. And I said, and he hesitated, and he said, now there was a duplicate of one game. I can't remember what it was. He says, if you'll let me have the one duplicate, you can have the rest. And I said, deal. So
Obsidian. Yeah, no, this one wasn't only $50. I think, if I remember correctly,
it was $143.
Well, but I think the guy was asking for $200 for everything, if I remember the conversation correctly.
Well, so. he originally wanted more than that.
Oh, okay.
No, he wanted more than that. He was wanting he wanted I think he wanted like $60 for the Intellivision, but that was not including the games or the IntelliVoice or anything. And I was like,
yeah.
And I was like, he was like, so it might have been $50, but it wasn't any less than that. So anyway, I have this box, and it's full of stuff. And Brian's booth was up in the front of the show, and I come, and of course I embellish everything, and I'm acting like, oh my God, I can't hardly carry this thing. He goes, and Brian's like, what'd you do, man? He says, he's looking at this stuff and says, man, look at all this stuff you got. So I want to show you guys what I got. For
yeah, that's a good haul for $143.
$143. And so, for the exception of some loose carts that I've bought, one of note, I had to buy Diner.
Diner's great.
I had to buy Diner because I love that game. I've emulated that game. It's a bunch of fun. I wish I had a complete and box set of that. But that's really high. That's a lot of money that I don't have. Being retired, I'm on a fixed income, and my wife's got me on a short leash. But there it is. That's it. I'm out. I'm done.
Wow. Shortest podcast ever. Roll the credits now.
Well, we can go to my experience with retro with Intellivision and how I got into it. I have zero nostalgia for it, which probably would surprise a lot of people because I do a lot of Intellivision homebrew games on my channel. I was 29 when I bought my first Intellivision, and honestly, it was probably about 4 years after that before I really got into my Intellivision. It was actually when I first started to get into the homebrew, and how that worked out was I saw a local posting of a guy who said, if anybody's good at Boulder Dash, we need game testers to figure out how to, we need to go through every level, beat every level, and just make sure that the game works so that we can release it. And so I went over to his place, and we were playing some Boulder Dash, and then he gave me he burned a cartridge copy for me, and I took it home. And within a few weeks, I was able to beat every level. Not in a row. Boulder Dash is a very tough game, but as testers, we had a level selector, so I was able to go. When I died, I could go back and look at more. Yeah, and I got into it like that. And so with the homebrew games as not my introduction, but my real, starting to get into the console, man, I absolutely loved it. It was one of those things where if I had these games back in like 82, 83, there would be no question what the dominant console would have been, right? Obviously, that didn't happen, and modern games have much bigger ROM sizes, and a lot of Intellivision games tended to be just more or less ports of Atari games. Not all of them, but a lot of them, and so obviously Atari being better established had a more approachable controller. It obviously just kept in the lead. But that was my introduction to Intellivision, and I've got probably about 118 of the original 125. I'm missing most of the big hitters, and I can't justify spending the amount of money that it requires to get them. So if I see them for cheap somewhere or comparatively cheap, I'll pick them up. But 99% of the gaming that I do on the Intellivision is homebrews. They're modern games. And just there's so many out there, and that's why I love the system.
So Brian turned me on to something, though. Because I don't have a massive collection, I still wanted to experience the games. And so I was talking to Brian about how to do that. And he was telling me about the multi-carts. And so, Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about the multi-carts on the Intellivision that you know about?
I can. I thought we were talking about our histories, though, of it.
Well,
going around.
Yeah, we're doing a round robin of histories.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He was all prepared and everything.
I was all prepared.
Well, no. Then do that. I'm sorry.
No, Casey, we don't have scripts around here, man.
Did you guys have the script? I'm sorry.
That's for the next one.
Yeah.
I didn't get one.
But no, now with Mike's thing, mine was actually kind of a complete opposite, where the Intellivision 2 would have been the first console that I had growing up. That's the oldest one I remember playing. My parents had it. Now, with that said, there was only a couple games, and I literally played those same 3 games over and over and over for probably a good 3-4 years before I finally got a Nintendo for myself. We didn't really have an Atari in the house. It was more my aunt. So like when I was at her house, played the Atari 2600 a lot. But what I had of it, I enjoyed, and you kind of have the picture. But Television 2 was it. Is what I had, and at the time I didn't know it, but I had the more inferior model in the scheme of things. But because as I've learned, here in the last few years of stuff, that it's not nearly as well made as the original. They cut a lot of corners for it, and especially in the controller. And it's an interesting piece of history there with it. And again, I don't think it had a hugely long cycle because of the crash and ColecoVision coming out when it did. I mean, it really showed a difference there. But I still to this day love the port of Burger Time, and I really think Burger Time was one of those core games for the console. And why I like it so much is because they didn't try to be like the arcade. I think they realized there's no way we're going to fit the size of the screen to a normal television and have it look good. And they just kind of took liberty. They kept the theme of it, but they took a lot of liberty into just making unique levels, graphics, sound, I mean, the sound was still similar, but it was just an overall really, really good
It's
experience.
a great port, and they did original things with it.
Yeah,
for sure.
So, and then everything. I don't know. I always mess it up. Is it iMagic or Imagic? But
Magic.
Imagic. Yep. I mean, all their stuff was great for it too. So, but the controller is something that is very different. And again, this is where all the second gen consoles were plagued with. Not just Intellivision is known for being unique with that disc controller, but again, they were all trying unique things. I mean, the Atari 5200 had the weird controller, and Intellivision did, even Coleco to a point. And again, that was all because they were
really pioneers of the number pad on a controller.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I mean, it works for what it does, but I don't know why, Atari 5200 and ColecoVision are like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's do more of that.
Well, a lot from what I've learned from it, just doing some history on that stuff, is they were so afraid of microcomputer gaming that when you had the Commodore and you had the Atari P computers and stuff, that they were afraid that that's going to cannibalize the market, and those controllers needed to try to mimic a microcomputer, and that's why they did it. And as we saw, I don't think any of them did it successfully. So, but,
yeah.
But no, I mean, but again, that's my thing. Like, unlike
and they had to be super unique and put a 16 direction pad that is so hard to replicate.
Right. Oh yes, for sure. And but no, I mean, it's a good system, but again, I'm not going to. I don't know. It's hard to say. I have a love-hate relationship.
You're not going to sit here and say it's your favorite, but you're like, I respect it. I mean, that's, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I don't mean to interrupt, but the Intellivision gamers comments are jumping on twice.
No, they aren't. So because I am simulcasting this on mine, when you reply in the comments on our backstage here, it'll show up in both.
Oh, okay.
So we see it twice. The viewers will only see it once. Don't worry about that.
I've never seen that. I'm like, why is everything I say on there twice?
Casey,
and you'll also notice because Casey became a member of the Retro Bliss gaming channel just a moment ago. You'll see one shows that you're not a member, and the other shows you are a member. So
yes,
one that shows up on Retro Bliss's feed will be the green one, and the one that's on my feed will be the black one. So that's all good.
Oh,
People are having a great experience on their end.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. Okay. Clarification.
Despite our yapping.
All right. Now that we know, we're learning on this channel. We're simulcasting tonight, so something new this week. Okay.
I need view hours. Bliss would like more subscribers, so let's do a little trade here. But if you already watch, if you're a longtime watcher of the channel, continue to watch on the Retro Bliss channel. I don't want to steal his viewers, but we can maybe broaden our audience.
Sure.
So Casey, tell us about yours, because I mean, you're like
my up.
Yeah, you're up. We're doing the.
It's funny story. I can't even remember getting my Intellivision. I was so young when we got it. I was 4, maybe 5. I just remember it was always there. So I remember getting more games, and everyone. I knew nobody that had a ColecoVision. So everyone was Atari 2600, and I was the Intellivision. There was one kid like all the way across town that had it as well, and that was the Intellivision 3, so it was later. But we were always playing sports games and all the certain good games on the Intellivision, and everywhere else we were playing the good Atari games. So I really grew up loving both. And I do have, not like this behind me, but I have quite an Atari collection as well on the other side. But I remember I had the Intellivision 1, the 2609, and I had the Intellivision 2 when it came out. And we had the IntelliVoice. I had maybe 40 games, and we grew up playing it until I got NES. So, I mean, I can't even remember getting it, which is kind of weird, but I was just too young.
Okay, and what were some of your favorites when you were a kid? Like the games that you had back then?
Burger Time was definitely right there. Baseball, I've still never been beat to this day. I've played a lot of people that grew up playing it, and never been beat.
I've witnessed this in person. He's
Do you know how to hit the home run every time?
No.
Is that why?
It's impossible to do that, but I literally...
On the Atari version it is. If you're playing my brother.
The best person I ever played was last PRGE. Papa Pete gave me the best game, but I mean, it still wasn't close. And he had a lot of luck on his side. There's a lot of luck in that. Other games, man, there's so many. But like Mike, much of my time now is doing YouTube stuff, trying to show it off. But I like all the homebrews. I'll still play a lot of the old games, but I love experiencing the new games, the homebrews. You know, and I have a lot of cool stuff like controllers that are prototype controllers, and the great thing about Intellivision is if you're a collector, you can never get it all. It is literally impossible. So I mean, there's always something new to go after. You never finish.
Yeah. So we had an interesting question from Firefly Family Gaming. What's everybody's favorite game on the Intellivision, and why don't we restrict this to like original library? For me, I'll start. For me, it's Tron Deadly Discs. I absolutely adore Tron Deadly Discs. It's simple, it's basic, but the whole it's like a simplified Robotron, and it's more of the speed that I can handle it, because Robotron, I never make it very far. It's just absolute chaos. But I absolutely love Tron Deadly Discs for the original.
Can I go?
Yeah, sure.
I like the game I mentioned earlier, Diner. I love that game. It's amazing.
Now, did you know that was didn't start out as Diner? It was a He-Man sequel.
I did hear that. I don't know how it got converted over to Diner, but I thought I heard that.
I have the early version that's playable when it was still He-Man.
Oh, that's cool. And that was also a late release, so that came out because Intellivision did similar to what Atari did, which was when Atari did the 2600 Junior, Intellivision decided to bring out the Intellivision 3 model, which was a budget model to...
Intellivision 3 is just a repackaged Intellivision 1.
It is. It is.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, I mean, we haven't gotten to the point where we're showing them, but here's an Intellivision System 3, and it looks, aside from the fact that it's black and not brown and silver instead of gold, it does have a little light when you turn it on. Technology.
But yeah, because I said that because they did those late releases until really the late 80s, until because I know Intellivision ultimately stopped so they could start licensing their games on the NES. But just some neat history there. But my favorite, actually I got it here. I mean, it's because obviously Burger Time's a big one, but yeah, I feel like that one is like known by everybody, and not that this is not known, but I played this one so much, and that was just Beauty and the Beast. I like that one a lot. It's a kind of a clone of Donkey Kong, but
I have a controversial take on that, in that Beauty and the Beast is better than Donkey Kong. I know it's controversial. I know a lot of people disagree. I like it better than Donkey Kong.
On the Intellivision, absolutely.
I like pretty much anything more than Donkey Kong on the Intellivision, but or at least the original one. Obviously, Homebrew, DK Arcade, D2K Arcade, and D2K Arcade Special Edition. Awesome games. But yeah, I've never been the biggest Donkey Kong. Like, I like Donkey Kong, but I've never been the biggest fan of it.
Well, it's just, again, it's so silly, but it's just funny too. It's just like the little cut scenes between each level is what kind of adds to it, because you have that little funny music with it, the or something like that. I'm not going to try to hum it out. I'll do horrible, but and then like the little stick figure beast falling at the end when you do finally reach the top, So
yeah. Have we all talked about our favorites?
Casey has to go yet.
Oh, Casey, you do that, and then we got a question from Zen Bloke.
All right, so I can't pick one. This comes up a lot amongst collectors, and I can narrow it down to about 10. But man, to pick a favorite, if I really have to, probably, baseball. The original MLB baseball. I mean, I love, all the games, like everyone you guys mentioned, Burger Time. I was a fan of Astro Smash. I had it when I was a kid. Back then I could get like 800 and something thousand. I can't even get half that now. All the Tron. There's so many good ones, and I really have to look at a list, but I can't narrow it down to one. But if I had to, baseball.
Yeah, I believe that. At Portland Retro Gaming Expo, Casey was going around and saying, "Hey, will you play baseball with me? Hey, will you play baseball with me?"
So baseball, where I grew up, every kid. I grew up where we probably had 50, 60 kids in the little neighborhood, and everybody was within 5 years. We all played whatever sport was in season, but baseball was a big one. And we're talking like the first Atari baseball. It didn't compare to the Intellivision. The later ones did, I think, but we were always playing baseball on the Intellivision at my house. So all the neighborhood kids, we played that a lot. Thunder Castle, yeah, Mr. Poe, that's a good one too, but that was much later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was like an 86
When I was a kid, everybody played hockey. And fun fact, I had a wicked backhand because I was using my dad's stick, which was curved the wrong way because he was right-handed, I was left-handed. So I had an awesome backhand, and I took out 2 of a kid's teeth by accidentally hitting them with my stick.
Woo!
Good times. Well, Zen Bloke asked, for the entire panel, would there be any worth importing select titles to phones? Now, obviously, this is not a stream talking about the stuff that's going on now, but Intellivision Entertainment has done some of that in maybe a more convoluted way than Zen implies here. I think Astro Smash, though, like basically anything where you're only moving back and forth,
sliding your
Astro
thumb.
Smash would, yeah. And honestly, you don't need all that Amico Home stuff around it. That could have just been an app where you're doing this, and I think it would have worked. But one of the points of the Intellivision, at least back in the day, is because you had. Let me get this out here. Come on. Because you had so many more buttons than the Atari 2600. A lot of games tried to make sure that you had to use them. So that kind of made them a little less, a lot of the original games, maybe a little less friendly to just being mobile apps, whereas 90% of the Atari 2600 library, you could probably just do on a phone with screen controls. But there are a few.
So were you guys were more Atari growing up?
I was
an Atari kid.
Anyone having televisions around you guys? Did you guys play both?
I wasn't even aware of an Intellivision. I didn't even know there was such a thing.
I think I was the only one to have an Intellivision girl. Like I said, I did not have an actual Atari at my house. I had to go to my aunt's house to be able to play the Atari. But like I said, for myself, I had the Intellivision too, and like I said, I remember probably playing that for 3-4 years before, like I said, I finally got my own console, which was the NES. But
yep, that was my next step. I don't remember these games are better on this, or the Atari Intellivision thing. Some games are better on the Atari, and some games we had more fun on the Intellivision, and we just enjoyed them both. I don't remember anyone, pointing back and forth and trying to figure out which one's better. We just enjoyed it all.
Atari versus Intellivision was what could probably be considered the first console war. But it was mostly like the Intellivision ads, right? The George Plimpton ads is like, well, this is on Atari and this is on Intellivision. Clearly, this one is superior. Taking shots directly at Atari. As kids, we'd play whatever we had. My uncle had a ColecoVision. I played a little bit of a ColecoVision. To this day, one of my most hated controllers. But so when I was a little bit older and it was like, okay, is Sega versus Nintendo, my my cousin had a Sega Genesis. A couple of my friends had a Sega Genesis. I had a Super Nintendo, and a few of my friends had Super Nintendos, and none of us cared. I was happy to go play some Sonic sometimes, and they were happy to come play, some Mario or Star Fox or whatever. If one game was better on one system versus the other, we'd just go play it on that one.
Well, and the thing is with that too, it's just I don't know that there was. I mean, there was obviously some improvement within Intellivision over the Atari, like when you got into the actual specs, but I don't think it was like big enough.
It wasn't really taking advantage.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't a big enough difference that I think people just didn't care because, like, to your point, I mean, there was games I loved on the Atari and I loved them on the Intellivision. I mean, like Pitfall is just as fun on the Atari as it is on the Intellivision. Yeah, you look at Demon Attack, a game I really, really love. Like I enjoy it a lot on Intellivision, and it's unique. It has the boss fight stuff that you don't have in the Atari version. But with that said, the Atari version's fun as well. So
I love Demon Attack on the 2600.
Right. So I think that was the maybe the reason why we didn't have that rivalry per se. It was almost like instead of like a full-blown console war like you have with Sega and Nintendo, I think it was just kind of a Cold War period with Atari and Intellivision.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty much the beginning. I mean, we didn't even really know what console wars were.
Right.
Yeah, and that was more at a corporation level, and certainly like the ColecoVision, coming out with the Gemini and the thing, and then Intellivision obviously had, the system changer. You could turn it into a 2600. Like can you imagine nowadays if Xbox came out with something that plays PS5 games? It's like, no, that's not going to happen.
Well, now that kind of stuff is happening.
Well, yeah, but by the choice of like Xbox is saying, okay, we're going to release on other platforms. It's not, hey, play our competitors' games. Come play Switch games on the Xbox. Yeah, so it's really one of those things. Like you look at modern homebrew releases, and we look at Champ Games as being kind of like the top tier of Atari 2600, and doing what you can do, with that system. But then you look at the top tier Intellivision homebrews, and from a graphical perspective, anyway, they look more like NES games. Like they blow away anything that you could possibly do on the 2600. So it is definitely a more powerful system. What limited programmers back in the day, probably more than anything, was A, their mindset of what games should be, which is arcade ports, and B, the price of ROM size. So we got to fit it. You know what? This is going to be a 6K cartridge because that's all we can afford.
And everything was rushed. I mean, they wanted to get it out and start selling it. They didn't have the time that they spend on these games now. That was another big one.
Although Oscar Toledo Gutierrez will spend a weekend programming something and turn out something that would have blown people away in '83, which is...
There are a lot of good programmers.
There are some great programmers. Should we maybe start... he's got your Champ Games.
These guys are so good. This Intellivision gamer, if they just say I'm putting out a game, I don't even have to see it. I'm just buying it.
Yep.
Yeah, if it's a Champ game,
no
you just buy it. Don't even ask.
Should we start to go through the hardware and stuff like that? We're halfway through our show.
We have some questions. I don't know if you want
to... what are questions?
Well, one of the questions, for those of you who have, especially you three, for those of you who have experienced the Atari and the Intellivision, I don't know if you guys did this as young men. Which one do you like the best?
Atari versus Intellivision?
Yeah.
I can't pick. I like them both.
It's like picking your favorite
I love
child.
them both. I love them both. It is hard to pick between them. But if we're talking, considering the vast majority of what I play now is homebrew, if you put a gun to my head and said, you have to pick one system as your favorite, it would be Intellivision. Pandora, because the type of stuff that they're doing with it, it's there's still a gluttony of ports. There's still stuff that comes out that isn't maybe up to snuff, and that's something that's actually starting to come out in the community. It's something I'm probably going to end up having to talk about in an upcoming video. But Electronite releases, Intellivision Collector releases, like Operation Cloudfire, Pandora Incidents. It's taking a system from 1979 and giving it the gaming sensibilities of something from the 90s or 2000s, which I think is absolutely incredible and leads to some great experiences. And so if I had to pick one, even though I absolutely adore Champ Games and I absolutely adore and have all the nostalgia in the world for the 2600, I would have to pick the Intellivision for homebrew.
I fall under the same boat, but I mean, there's so many Atari games that I love to play. But like you said, if you had to pick one, of course it's going to be Intellivision for me. But I'm just glad I don't have to pick.
Yes, for sure.
And I was going to say, I mean, that's a really hard one because, like I said, I got very fond memories of both. I mean, there's not one. I mean, again, I guess I'll go rogue in the rest of them. I mean, if I truly had to pick one over the other, I'm going to probably fall to the Atari, even though Intellivision was my first one, growing up, and I enjoy it a lot. I will just say though, like if I only had to use the actual console controllers, in many cases, I still feel the Atari controller gives a better experience, and I
totally respect that.
And that's really what it comes down to. But again, with that said, I don't hate the system. I mean, it's one of those loaded questions, right? I mean, like Casey said, I'm very fortunate that I don't have to choose one or the other. So,
yeah.
But yeah, if I had to, there's just, when I think in my head, the number of games over time, I do find myself remembering playing more Atari games within my lifetime, not growing up, obviously, but in my lifetime, I've gone back to more 2600 games than I have Intellivision. So,
yeah, I'd pick Atari just for the nostalgia reasons, but alone. But using the same criteria Mike used for homebrews, Champ Games. I mean, they're the ones that got me into the homebrews. They're amazing. Not to mention Spiceware. Their stuff's real good.
Yeah.
And
there's absolutely plenty to love on both.
Select Games, they do real good. There's just a
Game
lot
Select,
of Game Select. I'm sorry.
I will say though, one thing I'm going to do this to fuel the chat a little bit, because I see there's a lot of talk back and forth on Demon Attack, with what version's better, and I'm just going to throw a whole wrench in it and just say the TI-99 is the best version of Demon Attack.
That's like coming in here and being like, Bubsy, which is your favorite, Sonic, Mario, or Bubsy? And you're like, Bubsy.
That's right. Oh, geez.
Yeah, I have mine complete in box too. It's not in here.
Mr. Post said only one has it. I'm like, no.
No, there's a homebrew release of Beat 'em and Eat 'em for the Intellivision. I don't have the homebrew release. I don't need 2 copies of Beat 'em and Eat 'em. I just have the original.
No, I've never played it. I didn't buy it to play it. I bought it because I have to have one of everything, if not 2.
Piece of garbage.
This is a PG show. Poe shouldn't even be mentioning that.
Thank you.
Bad Poe.
So why don't we take a look at the hardware now? I think, well, actually, I'll probably start.
Actually, real quick, to answer Pierre there, yeah, they did. That was one of the 3 secret games with the because I got that, and yeah, it is. It's a direct port on the ColecoVision of the TI-99 version. It's good.
So the version of Intellivision that probably is the most famous and iconic would be the original. And that's, you've got, everybody knows what Intellivision looks like. You plug your controller in on the side, and
Well, you got the French.
Yeah, well, I'm Canadian. We're multicultural here. Obviously, you got your power reset. Everything else is on the controller. These are good controllers. When we get to the Intellivision 2, we're going to see bad controllers. But the cartridge plugs in on the side. And this is where all your accessories also plug in. So, for instance, if you've got the IntelliVoice, there's, Casey could correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's 5 or 6 games from the original library that actually make use of this.
Yeah, there's 4 of the originals, and then one with that's ECS as well.
Yeah, okay, so 5. We plug this into the cartridge port, and then, hey, there's another cartridge port on this side. You plug your game in here. Now, if you want to get really fun, and this is the Model 2, but you could get your computer module, your ECS, and then you plug that into the cartridge, and then you can plug your IntelliVoice into that, and you can just take up all your entertainment unit space with, everybody talks about the Sega Tower of Power. Well, that concept was originated by Intellivision. And then, obviously, we've got the Intellivision 2. These controllers comparatively suck. They don't have the bubble buttons for the number pad. The disc feels okay, honestly. My biggest complaint is not about the disc, but these side buttons, instead of being nice rubber buttons, they're hard plastic. And if you're sitting here and playing for a long time, that's going to dig into your thumb something fierce.
So
do they sell? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
On the Intellivision 2 controllers, a lot of people think you have to push them. You just have to lightly touch them, and it will work. Unless you have a back. Yeah. A lot of us get sore thumbs because we push it like it's the first one. But if you just give it a light little touch, it actually works.
Yeah, but it's also very difficult to change that mindset, right?
Yes.
And especially if you're really into a game, you're like, I mean, watching Phil play Popeye.
You're getting ready to get booted. You're getting ready to get.
No, you can't boot me. We simulcast now. You're not allowed to boot me anymore.
I'm about ready to boot you. Okay.
The one thing I'll note about the Intellivision 2 as well is that unlike the Intellivision 1 and the Intellivision 3, you can unplug it, the controllers, and it is a standard DB9 connection. So if you've got something like the Intellivision Long Play controller, which is a 3D printed controller that came from Cote Gamers, or if you've got Brian from BD RetroMods, his arcade stick, you can plug them into here without having to have an adapter or anything like that. No problem. This, and I believe the Sears version of the console has controllers that you can plug in and unplug. And yeah, there's other options. That one's not out yet.
And this is not a Genesis controller. This is Intellivision. The cool thing about this.
Leave that up. This is that. What is that?
Prototype. And he let me take it home to test it, and I haven't made a video on it, but I plan to, but I have been testing it. So this board inside is housed in a Genesis, controller. It is 16 directions, thumbstick. And then the buttons, between the start and the 3 buttons, you've got everything you need for all the basic games. And it works really, really well. Plugs into USB for power. Plugs into USB for power, and I haven't had one issue with it yet.
That's really cool.
Boom, mind blown.
And then arcade sticks, we all know where to get those. There's several people.
You're up, Brian.
Sticks.
You're up, Brian.
You need me to bring some? I have some right here.
I was going to say, pull it up because I fail again. I didn't bring it up here. So
okay.
Well, he's getting that.
Okay.
Another one of those editions.
Can I ask one question real quick?
No.
Maybe I want to ask. I want to ask while Casey was here too, but you guys might be able to answer.
I'm here.
Well, Casey's here. On the Intellivision 2, the membrane that goes over the keys on the internals, can those be replaced? Can those be replaced?
Yes.
Yep.
Where do you get the parts for that?
You didn't ask. It was easy.
What?
Yeah, you gotta like search eBay. You gotta do some searching, but
Now-
they can be replaced.
Recently, I saw those, and I have one somewhere. There was somebody remaking them. I can't tell you how well they work, but they are being reproduced.
If you ever find out, let me know.
But the other thing with that too is that it might not even be the membrane. It might not be because
I'm
the
talking
thing
about the top part with the number.
Yeah,
on
the
it.
actual
number. Okay, so I was
the
gonna say,
top part.
because the inside of the control.
Oh,
Oh yeah, Casey has 4 of them.
hold on, pull them up so people can see them.
So this is a special one that I paid extra for upgraded Sanwa buttons, and I believe this one was the 4-way, right?
Yes. Yep.
So I have 4-way, and then I have 2 twins, and then I have a 4th one as well. And these things are great. Some games I like the 8-way, and some I only like I want the 4-way because I don't have like that misdirection. And then I have a lot of other consoles I have for them as well. I picked up a few other ones that aren't Intellivision, but these are my Intellivision arcade sticks from BD RetroMods. I like the red and black, but they work well.
One thing you've got to know about
8-way.
Casey, and you can probably see that by the 4 Mario homebrews that are on his shelf behind him. He doesn't get one of everything. He needs to have like 4 or 5 of everything. Yeah, it's silly.
That's exaggerating. Look,
Only 2 or 3.
Two.
2. And 4 Marios. I mean, Mario's something special, and
that one
that was
I had
very limited, and yeah.
And that's because he would only let me buy 5.
Yeah. So I've got, I guess I've already shown the Intellivision 3. I'm not going to show that one. I don't need to show the box for the Intellivision 2. I've got one more thing to show, and then we can kind of pass to Casey to show some of the more really rare hardware. I hope you brought your play cable.
Yeah, because we got about 13, 14 minutes. He's going to have to be going here.
So into the cartridge slot this goes, but this one gives you a dead end because on top of it is a cartridge slot, and that is where you can place your Atari 2600 games, and then plug your Atari controllers in here. You got your difficulty switches, your black and white, your power, and your game select and your reset, and you can use your Intellivision to play Atari games, much like the ColecoVision adapter. This one's pretty rare. Not nearly as rare as what Casey's going to be showing you, but this one's hard to find and pricey.
And
Nice.
great. So I just dawned on me, I have AV modded consoles now, and I haven't.
Uh-oh. Don't let Mike know about that.
Here is
Have holes been drilled in those?
And this one is the one I like. Some of these, I can't remember which ones. Maybe it's Intellivision 3. So these have the bubble buttons. I don't like the flat buttons like the Intellivision 2 because I never
the bubble buttons are where it is.
And this is super rare. This is, Intellivision had the very first monthly service to have games to your house, and this plugged in to where your cartridge slot was, and you connected with your cable company, and the games would pop up, and whenever you got to the game you wanted, you got so many a month, and you would just hit I think it was a disc. I mean, I've never used one.
No.
And you could start playing the game. So this thing, I got this at PRG last year, and I was very happy. It's one of my prized possessions.
I was there when he got it. I was able to hold it, and I did not have the foresight to run away with it.
I slept with it in the hotel room.
I believe that.
It was literally 2 feet from me on the little shelf. So this is what you would get. This is a complete set. Another very hard thing to get. So the play cable came with an instruction manual set, and they all have the PC in the part number. And this was the box. And then I have one other cool play cable item. So this is a pamphlet, and it's a letter of authenticity that it is signed by Mickey Mantle, who was a spokesperson. Now, these are really hard to find. I've never seen another one that's actually signed and verified by Mickey Mantle.
Wow.
It's pretty spiffy.
Could you imagine that though? Like back, I mean, just like seeing how big that is, and I know how big the original Intellivision is. How in the world did someone get that to fit with their television?
Like I said, it's the horizontal tower of power.
So Michael was asking about the Tutor Pro. So that's what this is. This has one chip minus a Tutor Vision, and I picked this up fairly recently, and it wasn't cheap, but when I saw it, I'm like, I have to have that. How often is that going to come up?
Yep.
So it's basically, it's a Super Pro system, but it has all the internals minus one chip of a Tutor Vision, which there's only a couple full ones of those even out there.
Yep, for sure. And then you've got a keyboard back there. We definitely want to see that keyboard.
You want to see it out?
I would love to see it out.
I want to see you play it. Let's play it.
I can't play it.
Before he starts talking about it, I had one of these ordered from a guy in Argentina, and it turned out to be a scam. I got all my money back, but I was so disappointed because I was waiting for this thing to arrive.
So that thing was a scam? I saw those, but...
It was, but I made sure to pay properly through PayPal and all that, so I got my money back. But
dear Lord.
Yeah. Impressive, eh?
Yeah. Now, I did not know they made something like that for the Intellivision. I knew they made something like that for the Nintendo, but
So you've got Melody Blaster, and there's a recent homebrew release, Melody Blaster 2, that also uses that. So for the dozens of people that have one, Melody Blaster 2, that's what you want to get.
Oh, I forgot. I got something to show you. It's an Intellivision leaf blower.
I'm waiting to see it, Phil.
Oh, I left. It's in the garage. Never
okay.
mind. I'll have to show you on the net another episode.
So, I know we don't have... Do we have too much? I have one more, probably the rarest console.
Yep.
No way, because we know.
Yeah, for sure. I know which one this one is. I know which one this one is. This is from another continent.
This is an Arabic console. Try finding one of those.
Oh, wow.
You want to hear the really funny thing? My wife grew up in Iran, and she remembers these. This is the Intellivision she remembers. She never played one. She never had one, but this is what she remembers.
Wow. Look at that.
Can you guys see the plug?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's what we need.
So the North American one, obviously hardwired plug.
Mm-hmm.
It's really nice when they make it so it's not hardwired.
Even more rare than that, and I know there's probably people that have them, but I don't know anyone. I have a complete in box game, Arabic game, and the manuals are different. They open the other way. They're, obviously they're in Arabic, but that's even more rare than the console.
Yeah, for sure. Really cool. But Casey's, so obviously, like just over a half an hour from now, Casey's got his show. He's got all this stuff. He's Intellivision exclusive. And you get to see it. Like last week is when you did his mail call showing that keyboard, which is why I knew he had it. Definitely check him out for all the Intellivision stuff.
Now, do you do your show every Tuesday at 9:30?
I was doing it sporadic because when I started, I was a guest on other YouTuber shows, and I was just a collector. And then I started doing shows. Well, I had to play nice with, I still do all of their shows. So I was just hit and miss. And now I've been doing it. I finally got my own time slot. It's a little late for the East Coast guys, but I've been doing it. What's this, my 6th week in a row? But I don't do like reviews. I don't do a lot of anything else. I just bring awareness. If you want to know
community and news channel, community and news.
Yep. Something that's coming out, things that are going on in the television community. I do one simple thing. It's all I've got time for. And, if it's coming out, I know about it and I can talk about it. That's what I do.
Okay.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with having a specific niche when doing that stuff.
Absolutely.
So,
I think it's good for the community.
Obviously, I mean, you're the expert. I mean, seeing what's behind you there, and I know having many conversations with you that, I mean, you know your Intellivision stuff from top to bottom. So.
And there are people that make me look like I just started.
What?
There really are.
C-Mart.
Yes, that is one.
Yep.
So, Brian,
Canadian C-Mart.
Tell us a little bit about multi-carts for the Intellivision. I know that's something that I don't think Casey really wants to hear about.
I have them all.
You do?
I was going to say, I think, yeah.
Okay.
Mine's actually not here. I stick to the LTO Flash. I love the LTO Flash. Problem is, so Joe Zbisiak, creator of the LTO Flash, he has done so much for the Intellivision homebrew community. Yep. Absolutely wonderful guy. Taking a very well-deserved, like he doesn't owe anybody anything. He's taking a very well-deserved break from the community. When I saw him at PRG in 2022, he looked completely burnt out. When I saw him in 2023, he looked like his old self again. He was healthy and happy. And I would much rather have a healthy and happy Joe than LTO Flash readily accessible. So hopefully he either returns or passes that on to somebody in the future. I know he's got tons of boards. They just need to be set up. I do hope that LTO Flash comes out again in the future and people don't have to pay stupid money for them. But it is hands down the best cart. And Casey showed a bunch of others. He's got the Backbit. He's got the RTO Flash, all that stuff.
I think they each have pros and cons. The Backbit is because you buy one unit and you buy all the adapters, and you can use it for so many different consoles. Right. Very versatile. LTO Flash will work with literally everything, including the encrypted ROMs. The RTO, that's a newer one. I haven't even tried.
And it's an open source project. RTO is open source.
Now, is the RTO one available? Because again, like I said, the only one I was like when I was looking for them. Which one's? Oh,
I don't have the Intellivision cuddle cart, but I've got the Atari cuddle cart.
So this is one of the original ones, and it just has a little cutout in the side. And I don't know what its limitations are, but you can play all the regular games. I'm not sure about the homebrews. You just load them on the micro SD card and stick it in the side there.
Yep.
Yeah, because I was going to say, because the only one I was aware of just being available, because again, from looking online, the LTO seems to be the staple. Like that's the one everyone. That's the one everyone prefers, but it's not available, and so that's where I came across that Backbit, which again I think it works well. I mean,
Backbit is good, and Backbit works with I know it works with all the Intellivision collector ROMs.
Mm-hmm.
It won't work with every Electronite ROM. But Electronite isn't really selling ROMs right now anyway.
Now they are getting a lot of those ROMs to work.
Yes, they have been. And one of the great things about Backbit is it keeps getting updates. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, initially, not all of the Intellivision collector games worked, but they all work now. So Backbit is a good investment. If you're looking for something to bridge the gap until hopefully LTO Flash comes out again, which I've been told it is going to, but
it is.
Like I said, Joe doesn't owe anybody anything. So when he gets to it, he'll get to it, and we just all have to wait patiently until he does.
Can't say when, but I had 7 LTOs, and I let all of them but one go to collectors and friends that really needed them. And I wouldn't have sold them all if I didn't think they were coming back. So they are. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah. So mine, incidentally, I didn't pay for mine. I got mine before LTO Flash released because I was a game tester for Electronite, and they started testing their games on that and testing LTO Flash. So I was an LTO Flash tester.
Nice. So this is, I believe,
mine doesn't have a label on it.
I believe this is the one that started it all. You would load ROM at a time from your computer, and you can play ROMs on your Intellivision. Now,
that's an antique itself.
Plugs in serial port.
Yeah.
So I had from the man himself, Chad Shell. I had number 1 whenever I collected years ago. He decided not to keep it. I used to have number 1. I have random numbers now, but unfortunately, 17 years ago, I sold all the rare stuff, which I will never do again.
Monterance. Bliss said he didn't understand your question, but I do. If we have tons of different consoles, and he's asking, do you have like one set up at a time, or do you have them all set up? What I do is I have about 10 that I constantly go through, most of them modern, because my kids play at my gaming setup as well. And then if I want to play something that isn't part of that 10, I just grab it out of my, out of the box and plug it in. But at any given time, you don't need to have it all set up on your television at once. It just means that if you want to be playing some games, you got to spend 10 minutes unplugging the old system, putting it away, and bring the other system out.
Or you could do like some of us do and just have them all put on switchers and then just know which switcher does what and push buttons, or have an automatic switcher.
There are ways to do it.
Yeah, and have it do it.
My main gaming setup, I've got 36 consoles hooked up.
Yeah, that's an automatic switcher right there.
No, that's a retro tank.
Oh, that's a retro.
Yeah.
That's for streaming. That's for streaming. I'm sorry.
Talk about a good picture.
Yeah, it's an upscaler to get your.
I need one of those too.
Yeah, but yeah, I guess for myself, I have a couple stations. So I have like one station in my quote unquote man cave that has my bigger Sony Trinitron CRT that like I have a number of my older gen consoles hooked up to that I do like to try to play regularly. So a lot of my 8-bit stuff, some 16-bit stuff is there. Then of course I have a much bigger flat screen TV and like another part of my game room area that has more of my modern systems, or to like what Casey has, if I can hook them up through the retro tank, get a better picture on those. Or if I have like FPGA consoles that are, HDMI, that I'll plug in as well on that. But because we had this conversation on a podcast a while back, it's just CRT still has a place in my heart there, and I still enjoy, if I can, playing on that. Now again, at some point that tube in there is going to die, and it's not going to be fun getting that 200-pound plus television out of my basement. But
drill holes to make it lighter.
There you go. So,
well, guys,
what about you, Casey? What's your setup like?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm in a upstairs that's been converted like an attic, but it's been converted to a room, and it's like a rectangle about like this ratio, and I have TVs and stations all the way around. I have a video up that shows it from a long time ago. So I'll have TV and then like 4 to 5 consoles down, and then it's just every few feet there's another one wrapping all the way around. And 99.9% of the time I'm playing on the screen next to me because of YouTube, or it's like I play over there, but it's not as common. Between RC racing, YouTube, my kids are 8 and 11. It's like it's everything I can do to get in what I'm getting in.
I hear you.
I didn't mean to cut you off there, Brian, but I did want to kind of end the stream. The reason being is because Casey's got a stream. He's got to get set up here at 9:30, which is only a few minutes from now. And for those of you who know anything about getting one of these streams set up, it does take some time to get set up. So anyway, Casey, thank you so much for being on the program. You're welcome to be back on the program anytime you want, man. We're so glad to have you. And, of course, Mike and Brian, you guys know how much I appreciate you guys being on the program, as always. So let me see if I can do it right this week.
Do we get an extra?
I don't know. I didn't say goodbye very well last week. But anyway, you guys, thank you so much for being on the program, and we'll see you next time on Retro Bliss Rewind. Take care. Bye-bye.
Night, everyone.